Hello everyone, welcome and welcome back to the Product Marketing Festival in APAC. With product marketing experts from Singapore, Australia, China mainland, Hong Kong, Malaysia, India, and many other regions. We'll be covering all product marketing aspects from sales enablement, go-to-market strategy, to customer onboarding, positioning, and messaging. We got them all. You are guaranteed to walk away with tons of new ideas and strategies to take your product to the next level. I would also like to take this chance to say a big thank you to all festival speakers. We cannot make this without you. Also, thanks for the support from iClick Interactive. Their presentation, Discover the Secret to Adapting Data-Driven Marketing in China, is scheduled at day 1 afternoon, 3:30 Singapore time. I highly recommend it if you have not signed up for it yet. Last but not the least, if you would like to interact with our speakers and other attendees, please join our group page link at the end. We look forward to the Q&A session and your feedback over there. Relax and enjoy the festival.
iClick Interactive's marketing technology platform is fueled by data. Our data helps to drive, connect, and enable every step of all marketing activities conducted on our platform. When marketing to China, the key challenge lies in the lack of quality and deployable data to start with. And this is where we come in to help. Every brand has its own target segment, and there is no one-size-fits-all solution. With our proprietary keyword-based audience identification engine, a unique solution among online marketing technology platforms in China, we help brands to move from rigid, predefined audience categories to intuitively defining their own custom target segments. The intelligence comes with in-depth audience knowledge in a multi-dimensional manner, from demographics and geographies to psychographics, giving brands meaningful understanding of their target segments on what they do, what they like, and what they care about. Brands can then readily size up their total accessible market opportunity and decide if it's right or big enough for them. And we don't just take a snapshot of these segments. We're capable of monitoring their changes over time, helping brands to drive the marketing funnel down from potential audiences and brand followers to website visitors and owned users. Brands can also benchmark specific product portfolio followers with actual sales to identify areas for growth. Getting to know your competitors is just as important as knowing your customers. Our platform allows brands to learn about their own position in the market as well as that of their competitors, helping brands to adjust their overall brand strategy. While the intelligence is good for decision-making purpose, brands can actually activate the data right away on the same platform via our massive media network in China, delivering messages to their target segments via the right channel, on the right device, at the right time. We also help brands conduct online-offline conversion by mapping their audience hotspots in the Chinese cities to develop data-driven, location-based retail strategy, intelligently converting online traffic to offline leads and realize smart online-offline integration. Having an accurate grasp of data intelligence is a vital first step to any successful marketing initiatives. With our ever-growing data capabilities, we look forward to empowering brands on their China-targeted marketing initiatives.
Hi there. Hope you are keeping safe and well. My name is Meenakshi Shanmugam, and I'm the Director of Brand and Consumer Marketing at Property Guru Group. Today, I'm here to share with you about product marketing and how and when to invest in it. In the next 20 minutes or so, my intent is to clarify what product marketing really is and why founders and companies should consider investing in it sooner rather than later. While this topic can be discussed at length, please take the upcoming session more as a quick primer on this area. So before we get actually deep diving into the topic itself, let's just take a pause and reflect on what do we mean by product marketing. Like many things in business, product marketing too enjoys a variety of definitions and understanding amongst our community. Product marketing, much like digital and traditional marketing, involves getting the product to market and making sure it reaches the right customers. When we hear the word marketing, it usually is followed up by things like social media, email campaigns, blogging, etc. But product marketing is so much more than that. So let's maybe just take a couple of quick search results that come up, when you actually start Googling product marketing. So one of the definitions that, I kind of like, it's that from Wikipedia. So Wikipedia defines product marketing as a process of promoting and selling a product to a customer. Also, product marketing is defined as being the intermediary function between product development and increasing brand awareness. The second definition comes from the organizers of today's festival itself, Product Marketing Alliance. So according to them, product marketing can be summed up as the driving force behind getting products to market and keeping them there. Last but not least, one of my most favorite definitions of product marketing comes from Joanna Lott, who's the ex-CMO of ClassPass. She defines product marketing as per the following. At its heart, product marketing is about understanding what you are building, why you invested in it, and how it will benefit the user, and then messaging that understanding to your customers. So you might ask, how is product marketing different from marketing? Well, many people simplistically define product marketing as the ability to position, but it is so much more than that. So product marketing, in my opinion, is an amalgamation of 4 key functions, I would say almost, or tasks, right? Product marketing, when done right, can actually help a company to determine the following, starting off with what to build, right? Typically, this is something that overlaps with the product and engineering sort of department, or what we might consider it has the realm of the product and engineering department to define what is it that we are building. The second thing, product marketing can inform is definitely who to build it for, right? Which again, typically overlaps with either the user experience or business development or sales teams. The third area product marketing can inform, it's about how do we talk about the product or feature that we are introducing. These function traditionally overlaps with, let's say, your marketing or sales department. This is usually considered the remit of them to say, hey, what are we going to talk about the product or feature that we're introducing into the market? And last but not least, product marketing can also help determine how do we go to market, which is again typically something that would overlap with your customer facing or your customer success or your customer service teams itself, right? So you see that product marketing is not just one or the other. It's actually, if you want to present it in the form of a Venn diagram, you would see that it's actually literally at the nexus of 4 different sort of functions itself, product, customer success team, sales teams, and the marketing team itself. Whereas marketing is traditionally about leveraging channels to drive prospects or leads, to get people at the top of the funnel, so to speak, and then move them through it. Product marketing is so much more about helping your existing customers understand your products and features and engaging with them. Done well, of course, product marketing will help new users too, primarily through, the recommendations and word of mouth from existing satisfied users. But it is primarily an exercise in communicating with your customers and helping them understand the full value of everything you built for them. So you might ask yourself, now that we've gotten the view of, what is product marketing, when is the right time to invest in product marketing? Because product marketing is fundamentally cross-functional. I've seen personally that, it is actually very difficult for many startups to know when and how to integrate it. Basically, in my opinion, it boils down to 2 key considerations or 2 important questions. It's something to do with size and complexity. So let's answer the first question. The first question is, how big is your company? In smaller companies, if you would see, it's pretty easy to get, let's say, personnel or representative from the product, marketing, sales, and customer success teams on the same page about your product's features and why they are valuable. A lot of time this happens over, let's say, stand-up meetings or just, a quick gathering over a table or so, where people can't pretty much thresh out, this is the feature or the product we want to introduce. What are the key value propositions? How do we want to go to market? These are very straightforward conversations. So if you have one product and it's super early for the company, you could even have someone on your product team or your marketing team play this role about up to 30 to 50% of the time. You don't need a dedicated, let's say, standalone person per se. And really small early stage startups, in their cases, there might really not be a need for a product marketer, because a lot of times their founder or CEO tends to be the product marketer in their organization. So first question, like I mentioned, think about how big is actually your company, and do you really need a product marketer? The second question, it's about how complex is your product portfolio. So if your products are complicated, think about investing in product marketing early, even if you're a small company. What do I mean by that? A product or feature can be complicated for many reasons. For instance, it might involve a new UX concept, or the pricing might scale with usage, or it might even entail an upfront, let's say, commitment from the user before it's fully unlocked. So there's a lot of, let's say, perhaps barriers to entry for your product adoption. In this case, you might want to have, a dedicated, product marketing person or a role, or definitely a lot more involvement from that particular function, so that you could really define very clearly, what are the use cases, the benefits, of your feature or the product that you're introducing into the market. You would benefit from having someone really clearly define this, so before you actually roll it out to the external world itself. So on the second point about complexity, a lot of times, companies tend to be too close to the product themselves, and a lot of people, by virtue of the fact that you are involved in the process, you might think that, it's very easy to understand, it's not complex and stuff. So my recommendation, or my, let's say, 2 cents on this particular topic is, if you are too close to the product and feel for whatever reason that you are not in a position to, let's say, objectively gauge if your product or upcoming feature release is either complicated or complex, I would urge you to ask yourself the following 5 questions, and more importantly, get your teams to answer them honestly. First, ask yourself if the feature or the product that you're introducing, does it feel like an evolution or a revolution to the current experience? Usually, if it's a revolution, it's worthwhile thinking about, a more dedicated importance given to the product marketing function itself. Second, are you trying to convey a greater shift in strategy or mission with this particular, let's say, product or feature release? The third question you should be asking yourself is, how easily can a customer explain the product or feature to another customer? So let's say if you are the user itself, can you quickly, simply, articulate, let's say, what is the benefit, why should a person use it very easily to the person next to you? If you find yourself struggling in it, then perhaps you might want to get the expertise of a product marketer involved in the process. Fourth question would be, if you launch this product or feature with, let's say, absolutely no support or product tips, how easy would it be for the layperson to understand what it is, right? Unfortunately, most products in the world are not as intuitive as companies would like to believe them to be. So a lot of times, what it's obvious or easy for an internal audience to understand might not necessarily be the same for an external audience to understand. So bear this in mind and objectively ask yourself, hey, imagine I just give you the box. Can you, after a couple of minutes of, let's say, playing around either with a hardware or a software, can you kind of figure out what to do next? If your answer is no, most probably I would urge you to get a product marketer involved in the process to kind of, write down the step-by-step guide on how to use it and to present that as simply as possible. Last but not least, if you ask your internal teams to explain it to the customer, would they all pitch it intuitively the same way? Again, if you see that, amongst your sales team or your customer, a service team or your success team, they all define a particular product or feature in different ways, that is usually the start of, I would say, the end to some extent, because the fact that they are all describing the same product in very, very different ways, and they are your customer success team, it is usually not a good starting point for you. So by asking these questions, you'll see pretty quickly that what feels simple to the team closest to the products or features could easily leave the customer confused without the right, let's say, product marketing strategy behind it. So this is always a good, let's say, quick test to find out, do you really need to put a bit more effort behind bringing a product or feature to the market? And after, usually assessing the size of your company and the complexity of your product portfolio, you'll generally land somewhere on these metrics that you see in front of you. So if you find yourself, on the x-axis, you pretty much see the, the complexity of the product feature. Is it simple or is it a complex product? On the y-axis, you see, it's about the size of the company or the team. Is it a small company, or is it a large company? Right? So usually, after assessing this, you will find yourself, as mentioned, in one of these quadrants. And if you find yourself in the top left quadrant, what it essentially means is you should be looking at product marketing as a role, wherein you might, want to consider, investing in hiring a person itself for that role to perform that function in a dedicated manner. In this stage of a company, which is, let's say, a large company, but your product is relatively, let's say, simple in terms of its complexity, right? What a product marketer in this particular sort of an organization tends to do is they tend to be more heavily focused on things like cross-team knowledge transfer, go-to-market strategies, and communication support. It's about making sure that everyone within the company and outside are all aligned on what that product is. Nothing gets lost in transmission between the different teams and whatnot. So let's move on now to the second quadrant, which is at the bottom left. So if you find, yourself or your organization in this particular quadrant, you probably don't need a full-time hire or, department or team just yet. Instead, you can count on a strong, let's say, partnership between your product and marketing teams to make this function work. All right. So in this case, is product marketing as a concept, like I first, earlier shared with you. In many, let's say, early stage startups, a lot of times, this is done with a very, small team itself, where either the founder or the CEO is the product marketer itself. So it's the concept of product marketing, but you don't really have a dedicated personnel behind it. So if we now move on to, let's say, the third quadrant in that sense. So if you find yourself in the bottom right quadrant, right, here you would see again where, this could involve someone more heavily focused. It's about actually hiring somebody a lot more dedicatedly. It warrants, because here we're talking about a complex product. Even though it's a small company, we're talking about a complex product. So you might benefit from actually hiring a dedicated product marketer. So this person's role would usually be more heavily focused on things like product or feature maps, taxonomy documents, and even cross-team training of new products and features, as well as providing communication support in such a setting. Last but not least, if you find yourself, or your organization in the top right quadrant, the uppermost, let's say, rightmost quadrant, this is where it makes sense to actually have product marketing as a function or a department itself, right? It's either, they could be a team either within, subsumed within the marketing division itself, or has an independent product marketing unit, depending on the size and complexity of your organization and operation. So a lot of times, when people ask me, when is the right time to kind of invest in product marketing, it's not really a question of if you'll need product marketing, but rather when. So as your company matures, right, like as it grows in size or develops a more complicated or sophisticated product portfolio, the need for someone to focus on things like messaging and positioning will become a lot more pertinent. Obviously, it goes without saying that you need to have achieved product market fit first, because until that point, you're pretty much just still throwing things up against the wall, waiting to see if there's really a demand for your product. But once, let's say, you've achieved some sort of product marketing fit, I would urge you to consider investing in product marketing early rather than late, right? No one ever benefited from having someone bring in a view and a lot more clarity to the table. So you don't have to delay that decision too long. I think the key thing you need to ask yourself is, do you really need to hire someone in a full-time position for the role? Do you have to build up an entire department of team of product marketers, or is it something you could just kickstart by having that concept at the back of your mind, whether someone from your product team or your marketing team could double up as the product marketer in the interim, so that let's say mindset is kind of brought to the table whenever you guys are discussing about products and feature launches, right? So given that product marketing kind of essentially lies between product management and development on one side and acquisition and retention on the other side, right? A lot of times product marketers own a number of crucial roles and tasks that otherwise fall into a sort of like no man's land. So top among them is things like competitive research, right? Product marketing is also usually, typically responsible for creating, let's say, a number of crucial definitions, facts, and taxonomy documents for the company. So if that function usually doesn't exist, or that person doesn't really exist, you will realize that a lot of companies would have launched a lot of things, be it products or features, but there is no, let's say, documentation from an external point of view on, what is this product or feature? Why did we come up with it? What is the benefit for the end user and everything? So all those kind of, knowledge is usually not crystallized in the absence of, let's say, a person with product marketing inclination or a product marketer in a given company. So which naturally brings us to the next point, right? So now that you realize that there's never the ideal moment to really invest in product marketer, so what should some of the things you should be looking out for when you're trying to hire, let's say, your first product marketer itself? So congratulations first that you've now decided to invest in product marketing. But let me just, caution you on this. Finding the right candidate can be a challenge, because the right hire kind of sits at, as I showed in the earlier Venn diagram, literally sits at a key intersection between, let's say, building products that customers want and messaging those products into, let's say, your target buyer's consciousness. So usually product marketers, at least in my experience, they tend to get, start their careers either in a product or marketing background and get drawn to the other side, so to speak. So product marketing is not an either or. Usually some of the best product marketers I've worked with, they have an intimate respect for both product and marketing. And I can't reiterate, but this respect, it's not a nice to have, but it's actually essential, right? As mentioned, I found the best product marketers in my life to have a combination of both marketing and product experience. And they tend to have a particular combination of what I would consider hard and soft skills, right? Candidates, usually the best candidates tend to be well-versed in a series of topics that don't necessarily, let's say, fit in a single discipline or a domain. So for example, a product marketer would be just as, let's say, comfortable talking about things like agile development or launching releases, just as they are, let's say, talking about things like ideation, value proposition development, go-to-market strategies and pricing and whatnot. So you will realize that they are not really, let's say, you can't really put them in a particular mold that this is indeed the kind of background you need to necessarily come from. Beyond subject matter expertise, there are also a few key traits that I feel is general, broad bucket, let's say, key traits that I feel it's non-negotiable when you're hiring for a product marketer. So without, going too much into, let's say, specific traits, but some of the things you can think about include things like, this person, generally who would enjoy a product marketing role would be someone who's actually drawn to details in that sense, right? Because at the end of the day, product marketing involves a lot of minutiae, right? And candidates need to kind of manage all that, let's say, influx of detail and data and information, right? So when you are, let's say you're a hiring manager, reviewing loads of resumes to see who should you be hiring as your product marketer, I would say keep a lookout for those who come from, let's say, project management background, right? In my experience, a lot of great, let's say, product marketers tend to come from that world too. They are kind of used to, managing different projects, small, big, running multiple projects, launches at the same time, working with different teams across different, let's say, time zones, regions, cultures. They're kind of used to just being master, let's say, multitaskers in that sense, while not dropping the ball generally on things. They can handle a lot of, let's say, details. The second sort of broad, let's say, category of traits you should look out for is something like, you should look out for people who love to research. They have a tendency to be data driven. They love actually reading, checking out, and doing research. They spend a lot of the best product marketers I know, they spend a lot of their time, understanding market, people, cultures, complexities, helping, the company understand how to position itself vis-a-vis, let's say, its competitors or the broader market itself, right? So someone with either in-person or UX research chops, or more traditional, let's say, research background experience, can have really good, let's say, strong foundation to excel in this role. That would be the second sort of, let's say, key traits I would urge you to look out for. And the third sort of, bucket of traits I would kind of urge you to kind of keep a lookout for. It's for people who pretty much like to fetch feedbacks in that sense. So a lot of times product marketers need to function as the voice of, let's say, your users, and they need to be excited by the challenge of getting into the customer's mindset. They have to have that deep respect for customer experience and feedback. And they must really want to develop something that really serves the customer. And the only way you would know whether you are doing all of this right is to be in constant, let's say, conversations with the end user itself, find out what is working for them, what is not working for them, how you could improve. So you need someone who's very comfortable, interacting with, let's say, people, fetching feedback, distilling that feedback such that, you could give, let's say, actionable, let's say, insights to your own team to say, okay, what should the next iteration of the product or feature should be, right? Because not every feedback needs to be addressed, but if you feel that it is something worth, really carrying into your next, let's say, 2.0 version or 3.0 version, then that is something you need to be very comfortable, getting, distilling, and kind of bringing it back to your team, because you feel that that would contribute to the success and the sustenance of your product or feature that you've launched into the market. Last but not least, I would say a broad, let's say, the fourth sort of big bucket of traits that you should really look out for is to hire somebody who identifies themselves as a cross-functional player, right? Because few roles, really touch more people in your organization than product marketing, I must say, right? So candidates really need to have a strong sense of, self-awareness, but also relationship awareness or relationship building in that sense. If someone can't collaborate well across departments and functions, it's not that they can't do the job, but they won't be able to do the job effectively. And more importantly, they won't really enjoy the role or stay in the role for long, right? So I'm not saying you shouldn't be hiring, let's say, introverts or extroverts. I don't want to get into that because I don't necessarily believe in those, let's say, spectrum of classification of people. But I think what you need from someone is, they want to, at the end of the day, they realize that the success of that function, it's not only about them, it's about how they are effectively able to pull together the various, let's say, internal stakeholders' needs and requirements, and at the same time marry them in such a way when they go out into the wider world, they could also say, how now have we married the voice and the concerns of the customers with, let's say, all the varied views and considerations within the organization themselves. So they need to be able to really, distill and bring together all these various views. I would say, in many of the organizations that I've been part of, or the teams that I've been part of, one of the things we always do is, at the end of the day, it's about disagree and commit, right? It's okay if we have varying views and whatever not, but we don't need to leave the table, with, let's say, a bad taste in your mouth. So a good product marketer is usually in a good position to kind of explain why are we proceeding with something, why are we not proceeding with something, and what's the overall greater good that we are all trying to work towards for. And they can pretty much do this pretty tactfully, I would say, in most cases. So in summary, if you ask me, good candidates love to explore the details of the product. They are curious by nature itself. It's not something that, you need to kind of to train them or anything. They just tend to be naturally quite a curious being, right? They generally tend to also love research because they enjoy spending their time understanding markets, people, businesses, what makes all of this tick. They're naturally, I would say, collaborative and cross-functional. They need to have a high sense of self-awareness and must build and hold meaningful, let's say, relationships. They also they're also constantly striving for feedback from all sides, right? They really want to develop a product, after all, that really serves the customer needs. And for that purpose, at least, you really need to have someone who's willing to listen to various teams' views, what's working and what's not working. So before I kind of end off, one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you a case study that we did back in Property Guru last year, which was essentially, we introduced a beta feature in Property Guru Singapore mobile app last year. It was essentially a beta version of a visual search experience for our mobile customers. And this was the moment where you could really see the value, at least a product marketer brings, right? Because there's the sales team with their consideration, the product team, has the creators, they were thinking about this is what we should do. And then the marketing team had their views about, how do we position it towards consumers versus agents versus developers. And the product marketer was essentially, I would say, very critical in distilling the key points of what is it we are doing, why does it matter, regardless of whether you're an agent, developer, or a consumer. And, where was the company trying to go ahead with it? So I was just looking through some of my old notes, and this is what, I would just like to share with you, what were some of the notes taken when we were actually thinking about launching this particular beta version of the visual search experience. So let me just read off the note. Powered by augmented reality, artificial intelligence, geolocational data, and the group's proprietary data, Property Guru lands in Southeast Asia's first visual search solution for the property sector. It will effectively turn your smartphone camera into a real-world search device. Focus the camera on any residential building, and the underlying technology analyzes and interprets residential building images in your line of sight and brings up property listings of units that are available for purchase and rent, all in real time. Simply put, point, tap, and discover homes on the go. The concept of Property Guru Lens was inspired by several factors. One, our consumer research reveals that users increasingly see property search as a mobile experience. Two, we recognize cameras as one of the most important features of any smartphones today. Three, we believe that the future of property discovery must be a visual experience rather than one involving the mastery of keyboard. Property Guru Lens, which is now in beta, can prove useful, especially when property seekers don't know the name or the spelling of the property they are looking at. In this case, visual search can help them discover properties transcending language barriers. So this could, this piece of note was actually written by one of the product marketers in the company. And what was interesting about it was this simple one pager was essentially put together where we married why is the, when we went back to the thing, what is it we are building? Who are we building it for? Why does it matter? And how do we want to bring it to the market itself? Like, what is the actual problem it's solving? So a lot of these questions were actually pretty much answered in the, small write-up itself. And this is the kind of value a good product marketer can bring to your organization if you make the investment sooner rather than later. Again, thank you so much for your time. I wish I had more time to discuss this topic a lot more in detail with you. But you know, should you have any, let's say, feedback, or you know, I'm definitely keen to hear your thoughts on the same. If you have anything more, you know, please drop me a note and let's continue the conversation on LinkedIn. Thank you once again and have a lovely day ahead.